I want to thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Miriam Maya, and I'm the Director of Caring for Jews in Need and the Los Angeles Jewish Ability Center here at the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles. So I want to welcome you here tonight. And this is actually our first LAJAC Knowledge is Power workshop for 2017. So it's very exciting. It's actually the first one that I'm running, so maybe some of you have been to some of the ones in 2016 when the Knowledge is Power workshop series started, so I welcome you tonight. Tonight the topic is on government benefits while working. These workshops are a great resource for the community, and it's a chance for you to connect with each other and build a community. Just to get a sense of who's here tonight, raise your hand if this is your first LAJAC workshop you've been to. Wow. Okay, about like 5, 6 of you. Okay. And raise your hand if you are a self-advocate. Hannah, wonderful. And raise your hand if you are a parent or caregiver.
Raise your hand up.
And raise your hand if you're a professional working with clients. Great. So clearly we have a wide range of people here tonight, and I hope that Jerri, our presenter, will let us know when, but we'll have a break sometime in between tonight's workshop, and hopefully you'll have a chance to get to know people who are here tonight. I want to share a little bit about the Federation and our work. Our Federation identifies and addresses our greatest challenges and opportunities here in our community. We are the Jewish organization in Los Angeles that is focused on the future as much as the present. Our work is strategic, it's impactful, and it's inspiring. We work together with our partners and the community to accomplish our shared goals and create the kind of Jewish community that we all want. LAJAC, or the Los Angeles Jewish Ability Center, was created as a strategic response to increase communal needs for programs and services for adults with special needs. The goal is to help self-advocates or individuals with special needs to connect to resources that will help them become more independent and live fulfilling lives. LAJAC, for those of you who are not familiar, have 4 components to it. One of them is a virtual online resource center with a variety of resources and information for both adults with special needs as well as their caregivers and professionals. The second component is case management, that we work closely with Jewish Family Service and EDA to provide case management support to help individuals connect with essential services. The third part of LAJAC is a convening of partners. We have 20 partner organizations here in Los Angeles that come together to address some of the greatest challenges that individuals with special needs are facing here in our community. And then the fourth component, you're here tonight, it's the Knowledge is Power workshop series, which is intended to equip our community with tools and the knowledge to navigate the really challenging landscape of accessing services. I'm happy to share more about LAJAC during the break or after the workshop, and there's also some information, some resources on the back table. A couple of housekeeping items. When you first walked into the building, you went through security. The restrooms are right behind the security desk. And Jerri will give us some indication on when, but probably about an hour or so from now we'll take a break. I now have the privilege of introducing our speaker for the evening, Jerri Ward with Disability Rights California. Jerri is a self-starter who believes that listening with compassion, careful attention to details, and solid knowledge of advocacy and disability laws are the best ways to protect and advance the rights of Californians with disabilities. In 1987, as a student at Mission College in Sylmar, California, she set her career goals towards law when she obtained an Associate of Arts in Legal Assisting with a paralegal certificate. She soon began a career as a paralegal at Neighborhood Legal Services. She honed her communication skills and advocacy proficiency in the Government Benefits Unit, assisting individuals with issues regarding Social Security, General Relief, CalWorks, and CalFresh. For the last 20 years, as an advocate with Disability Rights California, Jerri has been assisting individuals in the disability community. In 2001, Disability Rights California, a system of protection and advocacy, received funding by the Social Security Administration to assist individuals to removing barriers to employment. Today, Jerri educates the disability community on how work impacts benefits, as well as assisting individuals in understanding work rules as related to their benefits. She conducts training events, answers difficult questions about benefits, while also providing advocacy to facilitate understanding of how employment affects benefits. Jerri accomplishes this every day by treating each person with dignity and respect. I would now like want to bring up and welcome Jerri. Before I pass the mic, I forgot to mention one thing. I don't know how many of you saw the little sign at the check-in and our wonderful camera, but one of the great things about these workshops is we have them posted on the LAJAC website along with the materials. So you or anyone you know that may not have been able to be here tonight has access to these resources. So that is the purpose of videotaping this, and I will now pass it on to Jerri.
Thank you. For folks who have joined us this evening, I brought some materials. I wanted to make sure that everybody was able to pick up disability rights brochure, a little bit about our Clients Assistance Program, a little bit about the PABS program, which is what I work under. This particular publication comes from Social Security, what every woman should know. I have a little bit of problem with the title, but you men as well. In particular, on page 17, there's some good information as to who all can receive benefits, especially if it pertains to an adult child with a disability. Social Security publishes every year what's called the Red Book. This year, unfortunately, usually the Red Books don't come out until the mid-year, probably. I was told September is when the 2017s will come out, but this is a really good resource, and what I did bring are the changes that apply to the 2017, so you're going to want to pick up a Red Book, as well as the insert of the 2017 information. Please, at the end of our session, they do, Disability Rights California has what's called a training survey. Want to know how the trainer did, improvements, if we were informative. Last but not least, we are putting together our 5-year plan. This is going to basically filling this out for us will give us information as to what direction the community wants to see our agency go as far as assisting individuals with particular types of legal problems. So if you don't have time to fill it out this evening, you can also go on our website. Please go on our website. It's really important for us to hear from the community as to what services they would like to see our agency conducting and assisting with. Okay. So, how many folks here have heard of Disability Rights California? Formerly known as Protection and Advocacy. Okay, I have one hand. 2, 3. Okay. So just a brief overview. I'm not going to spend too much time. I want you to know I'm here to conduct a training on Social Security under the PABS grant. But our agency also does other work. Our age group is from 0 to elderly. Depending on the type of problem that an individual has, if it's within our realm and the area of law in which we specialize in, we will provide information and at times, depending on the situation, one-on-one representation. So Like I said, our brochure does have a description of who we are and the type of work that we do. We do a lot around special education. We do have children that are doing transitioning at this point, age 17. They're regional center clients. They have an IEP with the school district, an IPP with regional center, and now they're transitioning out of high school. There's something called Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. They provide services to the disability community to help move them into the workforce. Under the Department of Rehabilitation, let me back up. Our agency acquired a grant called the Clients Assistance Program about 5 years ago. This particular group of folks, advocates in our agency, help individuals understand rules through Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, maybe eligibility. Could be that it's about implementing what's called an individualized plan of employment. So there's a lot of acronyms, right? IEP, IPP, IPE, that would be. But we have very knowledgeable individuals who help folks to move into the workforce and to get the services implemented by Department of Rehabilitation. When we talk about youth in transition, it's like putting together all the pieces of the puzzle, because you're dealing with the school district, you're dealing with regional center, now you're dealing with Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. Our goal is to move people into competitive employment. Any questions on, do you have any questions as to who we are and who we serve?
Are you a private organization?
We're federally mandated under the Americans with Disabilities Act. We get federal funding as well as other grant monies.
So if people come to you, it costs money for the service?
We're a free legal service. We do some issues, could be surrounding housing, but not when it's not payment of rent. It has to be related to a disability. For instance, if somebody's being evicted because they have OCD, they're hoarding, they're creating a fire hazard to other residents. They might be, they might have gotten an eviction notice based on that. We have assisted individual to actually stay in his home and to get that in-home supportive services for that individual so that it can remain a little more organized. We do not do family law, car accidents, personal injury, and it depends on the situation. We had somebody who was hit by a car. Why? Because there was no curb cutouts. And so when that came to us, we started looking at Los Angeles was supposed to have curb cutouts between done by a certain date. So we started looking at that. We've looked at issues regarding access, where access forgets to pick someone up. So it just depends on the issue. Let's get started. So the reason I'm here is to provide information on how work impacts benefits. As soon as this
Slide, turn it on.
turn it on the slide. I knew that. Just testing. Okay. So we're going to talk about Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI. How many folks are familiar with this particular program? Okay. And so when are the checks, for folks on SSDI, when do those checks arrive?
The third of the month. Third of the month?
Third of the month? That's good. It could arrive on the third or sometime after, okay? And it's based on a person's date of birth, okay? So on the third or after, when somebody comes to you and they're telling you they're getting a direct deposit into their account on the third or after, it's this benefit, okay? So the definition of disability for both SSDI and we're going to talk about supplemental security income known as SSI. It's defined as an inability to engage in any substantial gainful activity known as SGA. We're going to talk a lot about SGA in a moment, or I will. Because of a medically determinable physical or mental impairment that can be expected to result in death or that has lasted, or can it expect to last for 12 months or more. In other words, if you're in a fender bender and you break an arm, okay, this wouldn't be the benefit that you'd be applying for. You might be applying for state disability. That's the other SDI. A lot of people will come and they'll say, well, I'm on SSDI, and then I start talking to them to realize that they're on state disability insurance and not on this particular program. I'm very nosy when I talk to people. So I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with. What kind of benefit do they get? How am I going to help them to maximize whatever that benefit and what other benefits, did I say that right? That they may be entitled to. So the money comes from, for Social Security, for SSDI. It provides benefits to disabled, blind individuals who are insured by workers' contributions to the Social Security Trust Fund. In other words, when you get paid every month, money is being deducted, when you get paid either every week, 2 weeks, or every month, that money that's coming out of your paycheck is actually being put into the Social Security, okay? Known as the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. Okay, your FICA taxes, that's what you're paying into. So SSDI, you have to work and have paid into the Social Security in order to draw out whether you're disabled, retired, widowed, or dependent child. So under the Title II benefits, there's all these different, kind of like an octopus with all these different arms that are coming out. And you might have, under Title II, you're going to have Social Security disability, retirement, widows, survivors benefits, what we call childhood disability benefits. Okay? Childhood disability benefits are benefits that are paid to an individual who became disabled prior to the age of 22, whose parent is deceased, disabled, or retired themselves. Okay? Does that make sense? So if you have an adult child and you have now retired who has a disability, that adult child could potentially jump onto your Social Security benefits. With SSDI is Medicare. Medicare is a 24-month waiting period. Once the waiting period is over, you automatically get the Medicare benefits with your SSDI. Some folks are referred to as Medi-Medi, and that's because they qualify for Medi-Cal. Okay? Now, they might be getting Medi-Cal before the Medicare kicks in. Okay? I strongly encourage folks, when I talk to them, because I just said earlier that I'm very nosy, right? When I know that somebody's a Medi-Medi, I'm going to make sure that their Medi-Cal is paying their Medicare premium. And I've found situations where Medi-Cal they weren't notified, or the person did not notify Medi-Cal that they're now on Medicare, and it could be a year or two that they've actually been having that Medicare premium come out of their Social Security check. So we always want to make sure, if it's a Medi-Medi, that Medi-Cal is paying that Medicare benefit. So we're going to talk about what happens when a person returns to work. We're going to talk about work incentives. Most importantly, we're going to talk about 3 types of work incentives. Trial work period, known as TWP, substantial gainful activity, SGA, and the EPE. Okay? When you folks leave here, at least if you're dealing with somebody on SSDI and they're working and they mention these, you can say, oh, I remember Jerry said something about that. Maybe we should have this person call to find out more about it. Okay? Because sometimes it can be really confusing. And if you don't know the rules, you can mistakenly apply the wrong rules and eventually be overpaid. I have a question.
Yes. Would you rather us hold the questions till the end? Or is it
No, because the person next to you may
okay, I just want to make sure. If people don't know if they are eligible for Medicare or Medi-Cal, or what they can be eligible for, can they, is that something that Disability Rights California can help them with?
They can. If they're on Social Security benefits, okay, and they're trying to figure out what they're receiving, we can help them to make that determination.
Okay.
And if they're having a problem with that particular, maybe Medi-Cal, hopefully we can advise them and help them out with their situation.
Okay.
Another question.
If you're on Medicare, but you're on like the Obamacare, how do you combine those two?
I'm not quite sure how that fits in, but
Instead of Medi-Cal?
with Medi-Cal,
Well, instead of Medi-Cal, like if you're on an Obama program plus the Medicare.
there's an agency called, sorry, I'm having a Health Consumer Alliance. Usually they can answer, they can, help you with those, Health Consumer Alliance.
Okay, thank you.
So let's talk about the trial work period. The trial work period allows you to test the abilities, kind of testing the waters for at least 9 months of employment. And during the trial work period, that person's going to get their full SSDI check as well as what they're earning. Another question?
Yeah, so I just found out when I had a call Social Security, this does not apply, this trial work period does not apply to anyone receiving SSI, only the SSDI.
That's correct.
And let's just be clear, so SSDI is if you become disabled, right? If you were in an accident or whatever it is, SSI is like what we get for our adult children or children who are developmentally disabled, is that correct?
SSDI is for an individual who has put into the system. And if it's a parent that put into the system, they have an adult child that was disabled prior to the age of 22, and that parent is deceased, disabled themselves, or retired, an adult child could get what's called, we don't call it SSDI, we call it CDB, Childhood Disability Benefits. Okay. This is entirely separate from that other program that you mentioned, SSI. Okay. We want to set all that SSI information aside because we're just going to be talking about Title II, which is SSDI. Okay. So SSDI, when a person begins working, one of the first things that Social Security is going to look at is trial work period. And when a person, we're going to talk about trial work period. Now, when a person is working, Social Security, one is you have to call and report, you have to provide pay stubs, and you should always document when you talk to the person, date, time, who you talk to. If you're calling the 800 number, write the person's name and what state you're calling. Because sometimes, unfortunately, the person on the other line may give that person wrong information, and that person, that beneficiary, is relying on what Social Security told them, and sometimes I have seen where there's been overpayments.
So sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just so confused, what is SSDI? I've never heard of it before tonight.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
Social Security disability
yeah,
is, as in the previous,
yeah.
is monies that a person put into
Me, for
FICA
instance.
taxes. If you are working,
Yes,
and some employers don't take out for FICA taxes, I think school districts, they put into a retirement fund.
not me, okay, yeah.
Okay. So if you're like other folks who work, if you're applying, they're going to look to see how many quarters you put into the system. Like for us older folks, I have to put in 40 quarters in the last 10 years. You might have a 25-year-old who has worked. They're not going to be expected to put in as many quarters because of their age. That could qualify for SSDI if they're working and put into the system. Okay. Now, as a parent, right? You're
Yes.
a parent? If you have a disabled child, and that disabled child now is older, let's say, I'm just going to give a hypothetical, that disabled child is 30 years of age.
Pretty close.
Okay. And mom wants to retire, probably not close, but let's say you're going to be 66.7 or 65 and you're retiring. Your disabled adult child can now look to the possibility of receiving benefits off of your Social Security, as well as yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes, but this is like all news to me. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm doing good then, because I'm giving you.
So if you retire and you receive benefits, can your son or daughter also receive benefits?
If the child is disabled, if the child was deemed disabled prior to the age of 22.
But what if you're receiving it? You both can?
Yes, yes. As long as If a parent's deceased, disabled, or retired, that disabled adult child can now jump onto the parent's social security. Okay? All right.
So, sorry, can I just
That's
one more
okay.
thing? I know for a lot of people in the room, the child in this situation, the adult child, is already on some form of
Probably
it's
SSI.
SSI. So is this would SSDI in the case of a parent retiring or something like that? Would their benefits increase as a result of that situation?
No, actually what happens can I use you as an example? If you are now retiring and you have an adult child on SSI, Supplemental Security.
Well, actually, it's a little more complicated. He's on SSDI because my ex-husband died.
Okay, he's not on SSDI.
He's already on SSDI because he's disabled, my son.
How old is he?
25, but he also is on they jumped him to SSDI because the father,
Yes.
but now I'm gonna consider it for retire, and I would give more than.
They're gonna look at where he would benefit the most, and your son is on what they call childhood disability benefits.
Oh.
Under the Title II. Remember I said under Title II are all these different programs? Okay? Retirement, disability.
But her question was, can they jump up to the higher?
What they're gonna look at, thank you for bringing that up. They'll look at, once a person's eligible for SSDI or CDB, okay, let's say CDB, if it's not more than the SSI amount, let's say for instance, $500 is what their eligibility is, but their SSI was $889.72. Well, there's some money missing, right? So they're going to get both benefits, okay? They're going to get combined. They're going to be a concurrent beneficiary. They're going to get two benefits. They're going to come together. So they're never going to be any less than the SSI amount in which they had been receiving. Does that make sense?
Wait, say that again?
No, but actually, if you receive Social Security and he's disabled, he can get half of your Social Security.
Half of it?
Yes.
Plus what he already got?
No, it will be the maximum amount will be either what you get as a SSDI or half of your Social Security. You will get the higher one.
It's Social Security, don't worry your pretty little head off.
Yeah.
Social Security will figure out to what benefit he should be receiving. Because SSI is a needs-based program, it's like a welfare program. They want to find other pots of money, okay? And if that individual can receive off of their parents, that's what they're going to do, okay? And they're going to give them the higher amount. But it could also be supplemented with the SSI if it's not real high. If it's not $889.90 and 72 cents right now is an SSI grant, right? So if they're only going to receive $700 off of a parent's Social Security, they're going to get a small supplemental check to make up the difference. So they're going to be on both benefits.
But people can get SSI and SSDI if they qualify.
Yes, depending on how much the Title II benefit is.
Yeah.
Okay? Yes.
Another question, when a father would get SSDI because he can't work, but he's not on retirement,
That's
and has a child with disability, would that count, or only when that child is 21?
so if you have a disabled parent who has a
Not
minor
retired.
child,
Who's not retired
you
yet?
have a disabled parent, right? Disabled parent who has a minor child in the home. That minor child, they don't look at the disability. What they look at is dependent child of a disabled parent. This is where it gets really
Okay,
confusing.
dependent child only, not.
Dependent child of a disabled parent. So I had a situation where a woman called me. Her children were already, I want to say 7 or 8 or 8 or 9. She was on SSDI, and we're talking, and I said, I'm really nosy, right? I asked her if she had any minor children in the home. She said, yeah. She gave me the ages. Well, this woman had been disabled since as a young woman. Unbeknownst to her, her children could have been receiving Social Security off of her as dependent children of a disabled parent. Problem is that Social Security will only go back 1 year for those back benefits. But, you know, at least she found out. I mean, too bad she found out later than, you know, it would have been nice if it would have been years ago, but at least she could go back and get them a year in auxiliary benefits. Yes.
I know I've had some parents that when they transition to retirement, sometimes they're concerned about this tapping into my social security and parents' social security and losing benefits.
Yeah,
Can you-
that doesn't happen.
Perfect.
Okay, so what they look at is, Social Security looks at a family amount, and that's the maximum that the family can get, but it's not gonna lower the parent's Social Security.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's talk about work. We talked a lot about eligibility. So we're talking about 9 months of testing waters, and when a person is testing their work abilities, they're still gonna get their full SSDI check or CDB check. And whatever wages they have. Now what's important here is I listed 2014, 2015, 16, 17 trial work period. Because Social Security looks at something that's called the rolling 60. So they will look, if somebody had employment in 2014, how many months did they earn above what we're calling trial work period, the work period amount, okay? So in 2014, the amount was $770. In 2015, it jumped to $10, $780. Here we have $30 difference, and in 2017, a $30 difference. What's important about these numbers is to know so that a person knows how many trial work period months were used. We're going to go into that in just a moment. Okay? So let's say, for instance, somebody's working, 2015, trial work period was $780. They began working in February. They earned $750. That does not count as a trial work period month. Why?
It's below the threshold.
Thank you. Below that 780. They continued to work, but in May, their work hours increased and they earned over the trial work period amount of 780. So now they have one trial work period in their basket. Right? They continue to work. September, ding, 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 all the bells and whistles go off. Trial work period, another second trial work period month has gone into their basket. They continue working. Wages actually increased in January, but in January, the amount of trial work period changed. It's no longer 780, it jumped, right? That's why I say it's important to know the trial work period amounts. Okay? They continue to work below the trial work period amount until they hit July. July now, they've used 3 trial work periods and they continue working all the way to December, and they have completed 8 trial work period months. Got it? Following? Okay. Now, so the question is, what happens once they reach the 9 months? So in January of 2017, even if the trial work period went up, they're still working above that amount. So they actually hit their 9-month trial work period in January. Okay. They now go into what's called the extended period of eligibility. I'm going to go into that in just a moment. They hit the EPE, okay? And they've also, now we're going to talk about SGA, substantial gainful activity. In 2017, it's $1,170. It's always important to know what the new numbers are year to year. Social Security has a wonderful website. They have the Red Book on their website. They also have the new numbers year to year. We're going to talk about, I found the pointer. Okay, we're going to talk about August and September in a bit because you noticed that it did go down, right? And we talked about SGA being 1,170. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out here, but we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Okay? So the extended period of eligibility for at least 36 months after a successful trial work period. If you continue to work while disabled, you may receive the benefit for any month your earnings drop below. Okay, drop below. Ooh, here's the pointer again. Right here, substantial gainful activity. Okay, so let's talk about that. So substantial gainful activity is work activities that involve doing significant physical or or mental activities. Gainful work is work activity that you do for pay or profit. Okay. So let me describe the EPE. The EPE, immediately following the 9-month trial work period, whether you continue to work or not, if it drops below SGA, you get a check. If you're above it, no check. Okay? Yes?
Who is in charge of overseeing the what's it called, TWP, the trial work period, and
Okay.
making sure that you don't go over or below? Is that Department of Rehab? Is that Social Security? Is it your guy, CRC?
Okay. The responsible party to report is actually if you have a representative payee, a lot of parents are rep payees, you're assuming that responsibility
Okay.
to contact Social Security and notify them of employment.
Okay.
Wages are supposed to be reported on a monthly basis, okay?
So
But-
it's on the part of the client, or the,
Yes,
technically the
And-
client.
right.
Okay.
Okay, but what's happened down the pike, under the Ticket to Work Work Incentive Improvement Act, they also developed what was known in the past as BPAOs, Benefit Planning Assistance and Outreach. They changed their names to WIPA. Okay. So WIPAs, Work Incentive Planning and Assistance folks, and there's a little blurb in the red book. Those folks are contracted by the Social Security Administration to help case manage. And thank you for your question, because it's really important. That it's a free service. You can contact a WIPA in
How do you
this
spell it?
WIPA, Work Incentive Planning and Assistance. You have managed, it's managed care, I believe, here in Los Angeles, and they're on Wilshire Boulevard. And they help case manage a person. So if somebody's interested in working or has begun working, they can contact them, and the WIPA will actually do case management. They'll let that person know with their keeping track of their wages, when their trial work period has begun, what trial work period months have been used, and when their benefits they have used all of their 9 months of the trial work period. Now WIPAs also, what they'll do is they'll request what's called a BPQY, Benefit Planning Query. Okay? This is through the Social Security Administration. The BPQY is basically like the blueprint of somebody's benefits, and it will tell them if this person has worked in the past, if they've used their trial work period months. It actually tells them what benefit they're receiving, the amount that they're receiving, when they began the benefits. So it's kind of like the blueprint. It helps the WIPA person give them guidance as to how to properly case manage that individual.
This is very technical, and organizing this on top of everything else, regional center and, Medi-Cal and all the IHSS and all that.
And that's what they're designed
They're
for.
overwhelming. No, I didn't, before we knew about WIPA, so I just imagine telling a family or a caregiver or a parent to, now you have to also manage TWP and making sure the money and all that. It would just be easier
to refer them over to WIPA.
yeah, I don't know.
And
It's not-
in my opinion, yes, because it's a free service, you're
Yeah.
going to case manage them.
That's great.
And they even, after they've been employed for a while, they still, case manage them.
Great.
They're going to want to case manage them when it comes to Medi-Cal or Medicare, to make sure all the services are in place for that individual.
Okay, great.
Okay? They do a comprehensive assessment, believe me.
Is
I've
that
seen-
just for people with disabilities? I've never even heard of it.
Because you're on SSDI, it is a person with disabilities, so yes.
Well, I work for Jewish Family Service, I just have never heard of this program.
Because it's part of the Ticket to Work Work Incentive Improvement Act that came down the pike. As far as PABs, like the grant that I work under, that came down the pike when the Ticket to Work was passed to develop services such as what I'm doing now is training individuals and one-on-one. Okay? And then the WIPAs were designed to do the case management pieces, and they've gone through extensive training to be able to do that for families or folks, yes.
Do you have to have a specific type of service to qualify for WIPA, like Department of Rehab?
No,
Okay.
no, so a lot of times when consumers, I'm talking to a consumer and I know that they're working and maybe there've been some overpayments or a problem, they can go to WIPA at any time. And they do not have to be a client of Department of Rehab or Regional Center. Question, and then I'll get your question in just a moment.
But that's only if they're on SSDI that they can utilize WIPA. It wouldn't be for like overpayment on regular SSI without, like, if they're not at the SSDI threshold, they're still on SSI because they haven't worked.
If they are a beneficiary of Social Security,
Yeah.
they'd be eligible for WIPA.
Okay.
I think they might be able to get some pre-planning through WIPA as well. So, when a person has triggered that 9-month trial work period, and the following month, if they're over SGA, that magic number of 1,170, then what happens is they'll get a check for that 10th month, right? The 10th month is SGA. I'm going to show you an example in the next slides. And they get 2 checks following that. Okay? So they're always a safeguard. They're still going to get, once they hit SGA, that check, and then 2 additional checks afterwards. So, in other words, February 2017, they earned $1,200. Their EPE began, because in January they triggered that 9th month. Their EPE begins in February, and they hit SGA. So they're going to get a check for, they're going to get a check for March, April, okay, known as a grace period. So this is an example for each month that the gross monthly income drops below SGA during the extended period of eligibility. That's that safeguard. That was a 36 months or 3 years. They're going to be eligible for a check. Remember in those other slides I pointed out that they were making, right here, 1,100. So these are the months that they're going to be eligible for a check. Okay. And October, no check. Why? Because they're over the SGA amount. Don't worry, I'm not going to test you after this. So there's something called impairment-related work expenses. It's important to know because sometimes Social Security is not aware of what we call IRWs. And so it's important that the individual or the repayee have this information so that if they're close to the SGA amount, they can apply this rule called the impairment-related work expenses. Now these are certain items that a person needs and that enables them to continue working and performing their job. Right? The item of service enables them to work. It's needed because of a disabled impairment. They paid for the cost out of their own pocket. In other words, Medicare, some insurance or your employer, if it's paid by any one of those entities, then you're not going to get reimbursed. But if you paid for that out of your pocket, that is an expense. You keep the receipt that you'll give to Social Security. And if you're going through WIPA, they're going to help you to gather this information so you can submit it to Social Security. That's what's ideal about WIPAs. They help. So the cost is reasonable. In other words, reasonableness could be that maybe somebody's required, they cannot take public transportation, they hire a parent or a neighbor to take them to and from work. Okay? That's an example of reasonableness. And it has to be paid in the month in which they were working. Now, remember I said that this triggered the 9-month trial work period, right? In February through July, they were over the SGA amount. Okay? They were eligible for a check here. But if, after the 9-month trial work period, because the IRWs cannot be applied during trial work period months. It can only be applied once you've completed your 9-month trial work period. Okay? So if you are earning a gross income still of $1,200, but let's say that you have medication that you are purchasing every month because Medicare or you're paying this actual out-of-pocket expense, and you subtract it, and what happens here? Well, actually, you're below SGA. So that affords a person an opportunity to still get their check, their SSDI check. Okay.
So basically, if on a month when their earnings are below the threshold, they get whatever their earnings are plus their check. And if they earn $100 more and they cross over the line, then they get their earnings, but they don't get any check at all?
Unless they have, that's after the
Except
9
for
months.
this early thing.
Right, right,
This is during the EPE.
right. Yes, sir.
And the question, do they get the full check?
Yes, no deduction. This is for Title II, SSDI or CDB, Childhood Disability Benefits. Right? So yes, it's a full SSDI check as well as their earnings if they are below SGA. Okay? Good questions, because I'm sure that other people are, wondering the same. So there's something called subsidies and special conditions. This is applied for folks on SSDI or CDBs. Subsidies, special conditions are names that for support on the job that may result in receiving more pay than the actual value of the service. Subsidy is support provided by your employer. Special conditions are generally provided by someone other than your employer, for example, vocational rehabilitation agency. Let's talk about subsidies and special conditions. So let's say, when we're using subsidies, let's say I'm a person without a disability, and I have my coworker who has a disability. I'm working at 100%. I don't need as much supervision as my coworker. But my coworker, my coworker needs a little bit more supervision, more redirection. They may be getting a little bit longer breaks. So it depends on their needs. My colleague next to me is working at, let's say, a 90% capacity. 10% of his work is considered a subsidy. So when we look at 10% of 1,200, we are now below SGA, so they continue to get a check. So a lot of overpayments that I receive, remember earlier I said I ask a lot of questions. I want to know, what kind of work are they doing? Do they get any help while they're at work? I found that this woman who was quadriplegic and who was a teacher's aide in an elementary school, and she would read to the children, but guess who would turn the pages? She'd get help by the children. Guess who would write on the chalkboard? Somebody else. Somebody else did her copying for her because she couldn't reach the copier machine because it wasn't accessible. So those are all subsidies. She didn't realize that she could apply that. We looked at her earlies, medication, doctor co-pays. All of that was taken into consideration to see if we could reduce the amount or get rid of her overpayment, because all of these considerations, Social Security didn't have the information. Okay.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Everything we'll be talking about, all of this laws applies only to SSDI.
That's
It
correct.
does not apply to SSI.
We're not talking about that program now.
Will we?
Of course we are.
Oh, so I will shut up until we get there. Thank you.
Yes,
She means she'll wait patiently.
I knew that.
In regards to special subsidies and special conditions, one of the things we were able to do was use job coaching hours when going back to Social Security for an overpayment, and utilize that to help reduce substantial gainful activity.
Right.
So that they didn't have an overpayment.
Right, and that'll come, subsidies are used when you take a comparison to a disabled and a non-disabled. We use special conditions when we look at job coaching, okay? So, I didn't have job coaching on this one, okay.
It was on the previous one, right there on the bottom,
There we go.
vocational rehabilitation
Okay.
agency.
So when we talk about special conditions, even if that person, the disabled person, isn't actually, this is one of the exemption to the rule. This is exempt. It is if you have Department of Rehab, maybe some kind of vocational agency that's paying for a job coach, then you take them out and you can reduce it from, like you said, the actual gross earnings and see if it brings below SGA. And then they'll be eligible for continuation of benefits. We've used that a lot in order to reduce an overpayment or it to go away because Social Security didn't apply the rules. So thank you for bringing that up.
May I ask, you brought a lot of good examples. Are there more examples like dentist bills or would dentistry?
Dentist bills is kind of hard. You would have to look at is maybe if that person deals with the public. Okay, so when you're using, that would be an impairment-related work expense, right? Maybe somebody's dealing with the public and they have bad teeth in the front appearance. It could possibly be used. And I say possibly because it's not really all in black and white. Let's say that somebody has orthopedic physical disabilities and cannot raise their hands. Maybe they need to go, they deal with the public on a daily basis. They can't really do their hair or fix their hair. Maybe they go to the salon once a week. Okay? So one of my clients that years ago was using, she was deaf, and she was using text messaging before we came out with really our phones with texting. And she was charged with an overpayment. So as I am a nosy person, I was asking her all kinds of questions, and I found out that she paid for this device out of her pocket. It was not reimbursed by her employer. She worked for a deaf school. And they would text message each other. You need to be on the playground in this area, or we need you over here. And so I had her pull all of her records, costs for that text messaging. I had her go to the pharmacy to pull all of her her co-pays for her prescription, and that helped to reduce the overpayment. Okay. So when we're applying the subsidy, as I said, this is an example. So generally, a person will continue to receive their full SSDI for a year if we're looking at a typical, let's say that somebody starts in January. I love this pointer. Starts in January and they continue to work all the way through September. That's 9 months, right? And let's say in October they worked above SGA, they're going to get a check for that month and 2 additional checks. So technically a person receives 12 months of their full SSDI check. But if they continue to work over that SGA amount, it's no check after the EPE, right? Okay. So they continue to receive Medicare. A lot of concerns are if I go to work, I'm going to lose my SSDI and my medical, and most importantly medical, right? But there's a provision that allows somebody to continue to receive their Medicare for a period of 7 years and 9 months. A lot of times people will say, well, I don't want to work because it took me 3 years to get on Social Security disability. By the time they applied, went through the appeals process, and finally got to administrative hearing, I mean, I've seen cases where they've taken 4 years, okay? So, it kind of is, it's discouraging, and people are saying, I don't want to go to work because it took me too long to get on benefits. Well, Social Security came up with a provision called Expedited Reinstatement of Benefits. This is EXR. EXR allows somebody to get back on benefits without having to do a new application if it is within 5 years from the date of their last check. Okay? So let's say somebody had employment in 2014, continues to work, but in 2018, they've worked 4 years, they can no longer work, or they're no longer working. They could go back to Social Security, ask for expedited reinstatement of benefits. It's a 6-month provisional benefit. They'll get a check for 6 months. Well, Social Security is looking at a medical review. How many people have heard of CDRs? Continuing Disability Reviews. Okay. A CDR is determined on the date of application and approval for Social Security, whether it's SSI or SSDI. It's actually a diary date. So if somebody's medical is expected to medically improve, they'll have a CDR within 1 to 3 years. Medical improvement not expected for more severe individuals. They'll have a medical review, could be 5 to 7 years. They're not reviewed quite as often. However, because this person went back to work, was employed, lost their benefits due to employment because they were above the SGA, they can get back on benefits with expedited reinstatement, 6 months of a provisional, while they conduct a medical review. The medical review is not as difficult, and they don't look at a person as, under that microscope that they did when they initially applied. Okay. I had somebody who was issued an overpayment in 2015. Her benefits stopped. She was going through the appeal process. I just got her a few months ago. She said, she was telling me about her overpayment. I said, are you on benefits? She said, no. I said, who's supporting you? My daughter. Well, how come you're not back on benefits? Well, I didn't know I could. So I sent her to the Social Security Administration to request what? Expedited reinstatement of benefits. She called me and she said, Jerry, they told me at the Social Security I can't get expedited reinstatement because I'm in the appeals process and I have a hearing request. I said, that's not correct. So I contacted Social Security, talked to the district manager, and I said, your staff is telling folks that they cannot get on expedited reinstatement when appeal is pending, and that's incorrect. He said, okay, we'll send her over, and when can we expect her? And we said, well, Mr. So-and-so, who should she ask for? She should ask for this person, and she was given VIP. Okay. She was then given her expedited reinstatement. I've had them to go back pay retro on the EXR.
Well, how long?
Well, it's only the 6 months. And that person could do that. She can go back retro 6 months because they kept losing her application. And this is another case coming out of Santa Barbara County, that little town, Los Alamos. Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk briefly about plans to achieve self-support. This is a provision that's given through Social Security Administration. Not a lot of folks know about past plans. This allows somebody to put money into a past account so that it's for to become self-sufficient. The past allows them to set aside money. Let me give you a good example. Earlier I said that SSI is $889.72, right? For SSI. A person on SSDI that doesn't qualify for SSI because maybe they have $950 in SSDI, they can actually make themselves eligible for SSI, get themselves onto SSI, and bank their SSDI into a pass account that they can save money to go to school. They can maybe they want to become self-employed. I had somebody who was putting money into a pass account to buy equipment because of his psychiatric disability. He really couldn't work with an employer. He wanted to become self-employed. So what did he do? He put his money into a pass account, made himself SSI eligible. He's getting his SSI and banking his SSDI into this pass account so he could purchase all of his equipment to do auto detailing. So he needed a vehicle. He needed all of, maybe a little trailer with all of his, so that's what he was saving for. But he made himself SSI eligible. And we're going to talk about eligibility for SSI because he had to fall within the SSI eligibility to do that. Okay? But you can actually, for somebody on SSDI that's getting $1,200, it may not make sense because they're going to have to cut down to $889, right? So maybe they cannot financially afford to do that. Yes, sir?
Like on SSI, there's a maximum you can have of $2,000.
That's right.
This is a way around that?
Yes, it
You have a
is.
savings account.
Yes, it is, because Social Security, when you do a pass account, it's a contract between yourself and Social Security. The pass cadre approves the pass plan. And yes, once you make yourself SSI eligible, the resource limit is 2,000, right? But in the pass account, because it is a pass account, you can have $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in that pass account. And Social Security will not look at it as a resource. So that's, if you want to, say that's a way around it, technically, yes. It's a way of being able to save money so that you can become self-sufficient.
What is the maximum on pass account?
It just depends on how it's written and what the needs are. But they are evaluated. You have to keep receipts. You have to do an accounting. You have to report to Social Security how the money, you have to provide those receipts. They want to make sure that you're using it. In other words, if you have $6,000, $7,000 in that account and you decide, oh, I saw that sporty little red car on a corner lot, and you go purchase that car, you've been overpaid. Okay? So you have to use that pass account exactly how it's written and agreed upon between the pass cadre, Social Security, and that individual. Yes?
How does that differ from ABLE, where you're allowed to save money without there being a limit? Is like
I'll go into the ABLE account in the next slide, because ABLE really is about SSI and saving money that way. Thank you for mentioning. So ABLE is achieving a better life experience, is what's called, it's down here. So ticket to work is when a person is on Social Security, they can use what's called a ticket. If their ticket is in place, guess what? As long as the ticket is being used, they don't have any medical reviews. So as long as a ticket's assigned, there's a safeguard of no medical reviews. There's something called employment networks. Employment networks are folks where you can assign your ticket, Department of Rehab being one of the ENs. And then there's numerous employment networks out there. Back in the day, Department of Rehabilitation or Vocational Rehabilitation was the only place that a person could go to. So to open this up, what they decided was developing what's called employment networks, which allows other folks to provide services to individuals. I always say shop around. Employment networks offer different services. You want to get the biggest bang for your buck when you're assigning your ticket. If you're not happy with an employment network, you can actually unassign your ticket and find somebody else who's going to provide the service that you're happy with. Okay? You're looking a little puzzled.
I was thinking about something else.
It's a lot of information. No daydreaming on my dime. Just teasing. Yes.
Just back to the plan, the past plan.
Yes.
We've tried to do it on a couple different occasions, and it's a little more challenging.
Ooh, it is.
And it's primarily because you have to have a solid plan. So just thinking, I'm going to set aside $100 and help do it that way, they really want like you to outline everything before you go in there.
Cross your
It's like,
T's
how
and
big is
dot
that
your I's.
document? It's like a.
I think WIPAs are helping with past
Okay,
plans
good.
as well. And if their clients at Department of Rehabilitation in the past, DOR used to help with the past plans too. Why? Because they're now putting money aside and, Department of Rehab isn't going to be paying for a particular service because it's in the plan. So it was to their advantage to do that. 250% Working Well Disabled program. How many people have heard of Medi-Cal with the share of cost? Medi-Cal with the share of cost. We have one person. That means you qualify for Medi-Cal, but because your earnings or whatever resources you have are high, you may have to pay into the Medi-Cal program. Well, under the 250% Working Well Disabled program, this allows somebody on SSDI to apply for Medi-Cal and maybe wipe out the share of cost. As long as they're earning $1, they can apply for the 250% Working Well Disabled. They will pay a premium depending on what their earnings are. So if they are working, let's say that they're working for a neighbor and they do pet sitting, they're self-employed and they're earning some money, right? Maybe they're earning $50 a month. Well, they're going to maybe now be able to get Medi-Cal with no share of cost because they're earning more than $1. They may have a $20 premium, but that premium of $20 is better than paying $600 and some odd dollars a month for a share of cost.
What is the 250%? What is this?
So it's above, to do with the poverty level. There's an excellent website called DB101. Okay, that was developed by Brian McDonald
What is
of
it called?
World Institute of Disabilities. DB 101s, Disability Benefits 101. Make sure you do California because it does address other states.
.org.
They have, pardon?
.org. db101.org.
Is that what it is? Okay, I just usually Google. Thank you. Thank you. And so, yeah, it's a wonderful website. It also talks about everything that I've discussed here this evening is also on that website. So we did talk about WIPA, Work Incentive Planning and Assistance. There's a small blurb in the Red Book on that. Pardon me? Yes. So just follow the pathway behind the security. So BOND, it was a demonstration program. It has now finished, but what's really cool about this, and I can't wait to see if they implement it, basically for every what it's gonna look like is once you hit SGA, for every $2, they take one away. Which is really cool because somebody who's on SSDI, how much is SGA right now? $1,170? Let's say somebody gets $1,200 a month. Where's the incentive? I'm gonna work and earn above SGA, I'm gonna lose my $1,200. So if bond comes down the pike, I'm gonna be happy. It'll probably be retired by then, but if that happens, this is really going to benefit a lot of people on SSDI that make above SGA. It's more of a work incentive for them. Okay. Somebody, what's your name?
Rhiannon.
Rhiannon?
Rhiannon.
Sorry.
Rhiannon.
Rhiannon.
Yeah.
Okay, like a cannon, but Rhiannon.
Kind of.
Like a song, like a song.
Like the Fleetwood Mac song.
Oh, okay. I probably have heard it, but okay. So achieving a better life experience. Let's talk about this in the SSI because this will pertain to a lot of people on supplemental security income. Okay. So here's my information. We do now have, we are statewide, so we have a pre-intake line where you call, or a client will call, be placed on our callback list, assigned to the appropriate work group because we have numerous work groups. If it's related to work, it'll go on our work incentive callback list. Okay. So don't be surprised if you get a call from somebody in Oakland or Sacramento. Okay. They still do an excellent job. Or San Diego. Yeah. I think Ivan's doing some of that work now too.
You wanted to talk a little bit about AILI, right?
The training,
Is this another handout? No.
There was two PowerPoints.
Yeah, there was a second. I think I only know one handout. Oh, just kidding.
You're testing me, huh?
I thought I was taking one from my coworker.
I mixed up the SSI with the SSDI.
So we're going to talk about supplemental security income. So when does that check arrive? When is that deposited? That's right, the first of the month.
You know that one.
So,
I've heard of SSI.
yeah. So supplemental security income comes in the first of the month. What's important is that a person knows what benefits they're receiving. So, as I said earlier, I'm very nosy. Okay? Because some folks will be on the Social Security disability and they'll refer to it as SSI. But as I'm talking to them, I say, well, when do you get your check? I get it on 3rd. Well, now I know I'm dealing with the other program, right? And the relevance here is the importance of knowing what type of benefits an individual is receiving so that they can get proper advice and proper information so that when they are working, they're going to know how to, which rules are going to be applied. If you look at the Red Book, there's supplemental security income. In the Red Book, there's also the SSDI. Okay? And they have really good examples and very good information on. Oh, that's okay. Would you like to dance?
I think you only have the other one. There's 2.
So when we talk about supplemental security income, it makes cash assistance payments to the aged, blind, disabled. So we can have small children on SSI, and it's because their parents may be low income.
So you can
yes.
only get SSI before age 18 if the parents are low income.
That's correct.
even if they're age blind, even if they're blind or disabled, the children?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because what Social Security, this is a needs-based program, what Social Security looks at, if you have a minor child and you're applying for SSI, they're gonna look to see if the parents are working. They call it parent deeming, so there's special rules. They're gonna look to see whether or not the parents are within certain income criteria and if whether or not the child does qualify. So one, of course, Social Security is gonna look at, is the child disabled? What's the disability, right? Do they fall into our childhood listing of impairments? Once that's determined, they also look at the parent's income to determine if they qualify for the cash benefit under the supplemental security income. Aged is 65 or older. Limited income. Parent, if we're doing parent deeming and the child does get a SSI check, they're going to look to see the child could have $2,000 in an account, and guess what? The parent, single parent $2,000 or married couple $3,000. Combined it's $5,000. Sometimes SSI forgets their rules and they might be saying, no, you're over resources, okay? But we have to look to see how much money each, $2,000 or $3,000 for a married couple, $2,000 here, okay? One vehicle for eligibility for a child.
That monthly? That number? Is that a monthly number?
Yeah, well, you can't go over that resource limit, so you have to be careful when you have money in the bank that, you know, any interest, what, 2 cents that it may? So, but you have to look out, you have to be aware of what money's coming in. Sometimes SSI, let's say it's an adult with $2,000, but maybe they've been writing out their checks for the landlord and the landlord hasn't cashed that check yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes we run into those situations where there's money out there that's been paid, but for some reason the check has not been cashed. I have a question to that?
If I'm the payee and I'm married, but the account's just mine, just in my name, okay, so does that work for $2,000 or $3,000?